The Mishnah says something very interesting in Ethics of Our Fathers this week. It says, Akavya ben Mahalel Omer, Akavya the son of Mahalel says, Histakel b'shlosha dvarim, look at three things, ve'ena tabali de aviran, you'll never sin. Da me'ayin bata, know where you come from, ve'le'an ata holech, and where you are going to, ve'lifnei mi ata atid liten din v'cheshbon, and you are going in front of Almighty God to give a din v'cheshbon. A din means like a verdict, and a cheshbon means an accounting. That means like this: our lives, there's going to be a judge at the end of the day. So look where you're coming from, where did you come from, where you're going to, and know that at the end of the day you're going to be judged. But the problem with the verses, with the Mishnah is, it says you are going to give a din v'cheshbon. Din is a verdict, and cheshbon is an accounting. And the wording doesn't make sense, because first comes the accounting, first comes the appeals, first comes like the case, and then comes the verdict. Why does it say in the Mishnah first the verdict comes, and then comes like the accounting, the deliberations about it? And it's here that we learn something interesting. But first, a story to explain this. The Bible tells a story that one time Natan Hanavi, Natan the prophet, came to King David and he asked him a question. He said, we have a case that there's a rich man who has plenty sheep. And one day he had a visitor and he wanted to give him a meal. So instead of taking one of his own sheep, he has so many, he has thousands of sheep, he went to his poor neighbor. The neighbor has only one sheep. One sheep. He went and he took the neighbor's sheep, slaughtered it, and served it as a meal for his guest. So King David said his punishment should be severe. He should be punished 4 times. Because not only did he steal his neighbors, but the law is you should pay 4 times. So Natan Hanavi said, you just pronounced the verdict upon yourself, King David. Because what happened is you have plenty wives. You have so much money. And yet you saw a woman bathing on the roof. Her name was Bathsheba. And you desired her. The problem is she was married to a guy by the name of Uriel. So at that time, Uriel was serving on the front lines. He was fighting. He's one of the soldiers in King David's army. So the law was that a person who goes to battle actually writes a divorce to his wife in case he comes back. In case he doesn't come back. And we can't find his body, we don't know what to do with him. So instead of the woman remaining in aguna, because a woman whose husband you don't know where he is, cannot get remarried until she gets a divorce, or until you ascertain for sure what happened, that he died. So in those days, because we didn't know, he would write, just in case, a divorce to his wife, so that in case he doesn't come back and you don't know what happened to him, she's free to remarry. So technically speaking, she wasn't married. So King David took her, slept with her, and then when Uriel came back, he was a little bit chutzpahdik, what's called. He was a little bit disrespectful to the king, and the king sent him to the front lines, made sure he was put to death, basically. So Natan Hanavi rebukes David. He said, you, David, just pronounced the verdict upon yourself, because you are that rich man, you have so much, and yet you took the one woman that Uriel had. So you are going to be punished. 4 of your children, times 4, are going to die. And what happened is that King David, when he actually was with Bathsheba, she gave birth to a child. We don't know the child's name, but that child died. And King David cried, and he mourned for that child deeply, deeply. There was one child. The second child that died was with the story of Amnon, who had a half-sister, Tamar, and he really, really, really desired her. And he violated her. And from there we learn the laws of yichud, that a man is not allowed to be secluded with another woman by herself. Because what happened is Amnon really, really desired her, and he feigned illness. He said, I'm ill and I need Tamar to come serve me. And when she was alone with him, he took the opportunity and he violated her. And so his brother Avshalom, her brother Avshalom, 2 years later sought revenge, and he killed Amnon. That was child number 2. Child number 3 who died was Avshalom himself. Led a rebellion against King David. And during the rebellion, King David fled. It was a whole story. But Yoav, David's chief of staff, eventually caught up with Avshalom and he killed him. That was child number 3. And child number 4 was Adoniyahu, who also led a rebellion after King David. This was in times of King Solomon. King Solomon had him killed. So 4 children of King David were killed as a result of King David's sin. But the point of the story is as following. The reason why the Mishnah says din v'cheshbon is because the only person who can pass judgment on another Jew is you yourself. The only person who can predict, who can state your fate is you. That means like this. If I did something wrong and I need to be punished for it, the only person who's going to announce my verdict is me. How so? God creates a scenario where you see somebody else committing the same crime, a similar crime. And when you pronounce about that somebody else, oh, he's deserving of X, Y, and Z, you are actually pronouncing the verdict upon yourself. And that's why the Mishnah says, first comes the verdict. Why does the verdict come first? Because you pronounced it on somebody else. You actually don't realize, but you pronounced it on yourself. And that's why we should always speak nicely and beautifully about other people. We should always try to find the merit about other people, because really you're finding the merit about yourself. Right, about yourself, you could always find a merit. Oh, you know, I did it because I was lazy, because I didn't really mean it. It wasn't really, those merits you need to find about somebody else, because you're actually pronouncing the verdict upon yourself. The Baal Shem Tov says, it also says, Nifraim mi adam midato v'shalom midato. We pay back a person with your knowledge and without your knowledge. Without your knowledge means we create a scenario in front of you whereby you will pass the verdict. And essentially you will seal your own fate. And the reason why it's this way is because we are princes. We are the sons of kings. Mamlechet kohanim begoy kadosh. We are a nation, a holy nation. And so the only person who can pass a verdict, a judgment about such a holy prince is you yourself. So that's why we have to be so careful to speak nicely and to find merit in other people all the time. The story is told, Talmud tells a story about a person. The Talmud doesn't say his name. About a person who went and worked as a tutor by somebody in the south of Israel. So he went to work for this rich man, tutoring his children. In those days, this is a very normal thing. If you had to support your wife and children, you went to tutor somebody else and you came back a year later, 2 years later. In this case, this guy worked for 3 years. And he wasn't paid. He wasn't paid by month. He would be paid when he leaves. So it was Erev Yom Kippur, the day before Yom Kippur, after 3 years, and he tells his boss, I got to go back to my wife and children. Can I get paid? So the boss looks at him and he says, I have no money. And the person thinks, what do you mean you have no money? He thinks to himself, the guy has like a rich estate. He's got cattle and he's got... So the poor man says to him, maybe you can pay me back with cattle, with sheep, with goats, with some of your possessions, You have clothing, which is wealthy clothing. He says, I'm sorry, I have nothing to pay you with. Fine. Poor man goes home. He's devastated, but he goes home. 3 weeks later, after the holiday of Sukkot, this rich man pulls up to his house with wagons and beautiful stuff to be able to pay him back in full, and he paid him back the whole thing. The poor man accepts the gifts, his payment, and then the rich man tells him, tell me something. What did you think when I told you I have no money? You saw all the wealth around me, you saw the house, you saw everything. So the poor man said, I was melamed zchus, I passed merit. I was thinking in a meritorious way. I said, maybe you made a vow that everything you own belongs to Hekdesh, belongs to God. In other words, it's called you were makdish. You sanctified all your possessions, that I'm giving them over to charity, to God, and therefore you don't own anything. And the rich man says, I swear to you, that's exactly what happened. The day before, I had an argument with my son, and I saw that my son is lazy and he's relying on his rich father. So I made a vow, everything I own is God's. That's it. So I didn't have money to give you at the time. Now, 3 weeks later, I made out the money and I can pay you back. So the Talmud tells us afterwards, the man in the story was none other than Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva would become one of the greatest scholars, the hero of Lag BaOmer, the person who had 24,000 students die in a plague during Sfirat Omer, and they stopped dying Lag BaOmer. And the man who got up on Lag BaOmer, he got up despite everything he had built, the company he had built, the 24,000 students that he had amassed. He got up the next day, went to the north of Israel and found 5 new students and taught them the Torah, and in other words, helped the next generations that Torah should continue. This Rabbi Akiva was a person who was able to only think good about another person. And the reason why the Talmud doesn't say his name is because lest you think that only Rabbi Akiva can do this, can reach this level. No. Every single one of us, the guy is nameless in the Talmud to teach us that every single one of us should always think positively about another Jew. Should always think good things. Should never pass judgment in a negative way at another person. Should always find a way of being meritorious for the other person. Because at the end of the day, you actually talking about your own verdict. Because the only person who can pass judgment on yourself is yourself. Because you have a soul, which is a part of God, which is a prince. And that's why the Mishnah says, Din v'cheshbon. First comes the verdict, and then comes the cheshbon, the accounting. Let's all learn from this to only think positively about other people and say positive things about other people.